So when I talk to students about a p-value, I use a loose interpretation. Okay, that's why I want to make a video on these questions because they're asking us to use a strict interpretation of a p-value for a lot of these. So which of the following are true? A p-value of 0.01 means that the null hypothesis is false. It doesn't guarantee that. A p-value only provides evidence, and a 0.01 is a low chance that the null hypothesis is true, but doesn't guarantee it. So this p-value provides evidence against the null hypothesis. That's true. A low p-value means the null hypothesis is unlikely, but it does not prove that it's false. Okay, so anything with proves in statistics you can usually rule out. A p-value of 0.01 means that the null hypothesis has a 0.01 chance of being true. That's not strictly correct. Okay, loosely I think that's correct, but strictly what the p-value is saying, it's the probability that you were to get this test statistic assuming that the null hypothesis is true. Okay, so p-value 0.01 means that there's a 0.01, or sorry, there's a 1% chance that you got your test statistic assuming that the null hypothesis is true. So this p-value proves, okay, there's that word proves again, forget that one. The p-value is not the probability that the null hypothesis is true. That's correct. The p-value isn't the probability that the null hypothesis is true. The p-value is the probability that you get this test statistic assuming that the null hypothesis is true. Okay, I think that's it. No, there's the word proves again. It's not true. That statement's not true. Okay, so C, a p-value of 0.01 is evidence against the null hypothesis. It does mean that the null hypothesis is unlikely. The first option, false. This p-value proves the okay, there's the word proves. So forget A. B, this p-value provides evidence for the null. No, that's the opposite. This p-value is providing evidence against the null hypothesis, so not B. A low p-value means the null hypothesis is unlikely. C, whether a p-value provides evidence for the null hypothesis depends on the alpha level. That is true. So I think C is the only one we can say, okay? Because sometimes in statistics, you have to have a really low alpha level. Okay, you need to be really sure that the new medicine is actually providing better treatment because it's going to cost a lot of time and effort and research on this new medicine and to rule out the old medicine. Okay, so I mean I'm close to saying true, but it really does officially depend on what your alpha is. Okay, well they wanted true there. So technically, in a hypothesis test, the alpha is required, right? 0.05 is usually our alpha, but sometimes it's 0.01, sometimes it's 0.001. C, I marked it wrong. I'm not, and I'm sure other professors have looked over this. I don't necessarily agree with it being true when C is an option. It does depend on the alpha level when you make a decision. Okay, a low p-value like 0.01, I guess regardless of your alpha, that's a pretty low chance of happening. Okay, but usually our criteria for evidence is that alpha level. So there you go. For C, it's supposed to be true. Now you don't have to get it wrong like I did the first time. That's weird though. I'm not sure I agree with that, but I guess I could be wrong. Okay, D, a p-value of 0.01 means we should definitely reject the null hypothesis. Okay, there's that word definitely, right? So we know that this is not true. It means it provides evidence against the null hypothesis. We should probably reject the null hypothesis, but it's not clear. It's not conclusive that we definitely have to reject the null hypothesis. Okay, so whether a p-value provides enough evidence to reject the null hypothesis, that depends on the alpha level. That is true. Let's see if there's any other things that would mess us up. Null hypothesis should be accepted. No, because it's the opposite. Low p-values mean the null hypothesis should be rejected. This p-value means the alternative hypothesis should be accepted. We reject a null in favor of an alternative, okay? But it does depend on that alpha level, so I'm going to stick with my guns here. Okay, that time it said, yes, alpha is a criteria.